It's question time. As you can see, this is a really unique orange flash hider on the front of this Ronin 47. In fact, KWA has been kind of changing the way we think about orange tips in the American market of Airsoft AEGs. They put this awesome blaze orange anodized finish on their flash hiders, and their flash hiders aren't a standard A2 birdcage. Would you guys like to see more brands do something unique like this? And if more brands put more effort into their flash hiders looking cool, would you be less inclined to change them when you get them? Let us know in the comments section below. What's up, Airsofters? This is the all-new Ronin 47 by KWA. The KWA Ronin series of AEGs stands out in the world of Airsoft as a lineup of well-thought-out, great-looking, and solidly constructed platforms. They're offered in a variety of shapes and sizes, featuring design motifs that cater directly to the needs of Airsofters without the limitations of being an exact replica of an existing real rifle. Being unique opens up some awesome opportunities for cool-looking, usable platforms that exist kind of in their own reality. Enter the Ronin 47. Introduced at SHOT Show 2020 and similar to the very popular QRF series, this puppy features ambidextrous controls, a collapsible stock with plenty of battery storage space, and a badass-looking AK-style magazine without the headache of learning to load an AK mag in an AR-style Armalite platform. The version in my hands is, of course, their special Drifter edition, featuring some all-green accessories in their Drifter green. Now this one, of course, ships with the orange tip, but comes with a super cool green flash hider to tie the whole color scheme together. In fact, if you pre-order the Drifter edition on our website, it comes with an awesome neon green sweatshirt, as well as a black Ronin 47 t-shirt, mask, some really cool stickers and patches, and you'll be a member of an elite club of Drifter users in the Airsoft game. Let's take a look at how the Ronin 47 comes in the box. Up top, you've got a description of some of the features you'll find inside. Remove the locking tabs, flip back the cardboard, and you can see how the Ronin 47 is shipped. Now this is pretty standard for KWA these days. A simple cardboard box with some open cell foam that keeps things situated during shipping. You'll notice the magazine is at the end here, as well as an accessories bag with both your warranty card, the adjustment tool for the variable FPS, as well as some rail segment points, just in case you haven't made the transition over to MLOK yet. As well as a Dean style adapter for your battery to be converted over to be compatible with the Ronin 47. The KWA Ronin series of rifles, including the Ronin 47, all use KWA's version 2.5 gearbox system. They all have slightly different hop-up units. The hop-up for the Ronin 47 is proprietary, and that's because of the proprietary magazine. The barrel and bucking are standard for an AEG. These rifles are wired to Deans and all have an automotive fuse, which is really easy to replace thanks to the spade connectors in the wires. This is a nice quality of life feature that is indicative of KWA's attention to detail. In order to access the quick change spring, you need to take off the battery housing, which is held on by a single screw. Once removed, the spring guide can be removed by hand. This is also how you would adjust the FPS of the KWA Ronin 47, using either the included tool or just a standard 2.5mm hex key. Clockwise increases FPS and counterclockwise decreases it. This is achieved by compressing the spring more or less to fine-tune your FPS. So you're aiming for a specific number, making this adjustment can get you there. There is also a bearing on the spring guide to prevent spring binding. While the KWA 2.5 gearbox system doesn't have a MOSFET, what they do have is a diode on the bottom of the motor for a sort of rudimentary circuit protection. This diode can be easily removed or transferred from a different motor just by removing the screws and holding it in place. Thankfully, the new AEG 2.5 gearboxes are compatible with aftermarket trigger board MOSFETs, so if you're looking to upgrade, it's certainly an option. The KWA ambi selector system is nice and responsive and is independent of the gearbox, meaning you don't need to take the levers off to access the gearbox. The KWA gearbox shell is proprietary and is very heavy duty. Lots of reinforcement is incorporated into its design. The newest AEG 2.5 gearbox like this one also has enough room for most drop-in trigger MOSFETs, so you can always upgrade if you need to. Parts like the selector plate, mock bolt, and charging handle are all proprietary, but easy to access and replace. Other proprietary parts include the tappet plate and the air nozzle, which interface very securely. The air nozzle has a rather large O-ring for improved air seal, as well as a ridge on top for consistent alignment with the hop-up chamber, something somewhat unique to KWA. All the other internal parts are compatible with most TM spec aftermarket components. The 18:1 ratio gears ride on 9mm bearings, and the piston is KWA's iconic design, with a non-ported aluminum face and a single metal tooth. The cylinder is ported, and the cylinder head is polymer with a single O-ring. So aside from a select few proprietary parts, these gearboxes are very upgradable and easy enough to work on, thanks largely in part to the quick change spring and the unique ambi selector lever system. Before we get to testing some of the specs and features of this puppy, I thought I'd take a minute to talk about some of the external accessories we've thrown on here. Obviously, big fan of the red dot, so I threw a red dot on here. Something that you might add aftermarket, and something that a lot of people really like the quality of, is the PTS flip-up front and rear backup irons, as well as a PTS grip. Now, thankfully, both of these items are included out of the box on the Ronin 47, so there's no need to upgrade there. Throw on a red dot, maybe a flashlight or a vertical grip if you want a little bit more control out front, and I think this thing's squared away right out of the box. Starting up at the front, we've got the RN47 Cutter Muzzle Brake, which is new to this platform, and I think the anodized orange looks really, really cool. I like that KWA is thinking outside the box on how to comply with the laws, but really give you something that you don't necessarily need to change because it doesn't look terrible. Just behind that, we've got the now famous TML8 MLOK front handguard. Now, the TML8 is actually about 7 inches in length and features both pick rails up top as well as a pick rail on the 6 o'clock position at the very front. If you were running something like a pistol flashlight that had a Picatinny mount, you could always throw that on there. Personally, without a bipod, I think it's kind of pointless, but it's there just in case you need it, and plenty of MLOK space for the attachment of other accessories. You'll also notice that the transition between the TML8 and the receiver is a really nice uninterrupted one, meaning that there's no larger block on either side to interrupt your spacing. Now that's convenient because it allows you to run an accessory like an optic all the way out between the receiver and the handguard without any interruption or any interference between the two. I really like that. Just underneath the top rail, you've got a full metal billet style upper and lower receiver with plenty of ambidextrous controls. We'll get to those in just a minute. And finally, out back, we have both the PTS motor grip as well as the KWA retractable stock. Now this is a multi-position stock. Hopefully I can do it with one hand. Fully collapsed, it still has all of its battery storage compartment, and the battery can fit about 1,000 milliamp 11-1 battery. That's what we've got in here. And because it's wired to Dean's, thankfully, it fits beautifully. Now, first position, second position, third position. So 3-position stock, and personally, I feel the texturized stock is very, very comfortable. The TML8 is also a free-floating handguard, meaning there's no front piece that holds it in place. So all of the structural rigidity of the TML8 is accomplished by the barrel nut and the compression fitting here at the bottom. Luckily, they've provided for keeping it stable against the receiver by giving you anti-rotation pins at the back of the handguard, keeping you from being able to spin this when it's tight, and just in case you happen to wrench on it, those anti-rotation tabs will keep it in place. As you can see, it's real easy for me to A, transition, and B, activate my select fire switches. And that's due largely in part to the really nice enhanced and oversized select fire switches on either side because they're ambidextrous. You'll notice that the one on the right side is slightly shorter than the one on the left side. And that's because as a righty, it's nice to be able to flip your select fire switch to fire without this digging into your hand. Thankfully for you lefties, you can actually flip these from left to right using the set screw that holds them in place, and that makes it convenient for left-sided shooters as well. Other ambidextrous controls include the bolt lock, which is going to allow you to adjust your hop up. Once pulling the charging handle, you can release it either with the right side release or the standard AR left side release. One thing I will say though is if you want to adjust your hop up, this doesn't lock automatically. You'll want to hold the bottom of the bolt catch and that'll lock it in place. Not a big deal, just something you should be aware of. It does function properly. Just under all of those controls is your mag release buttons. Now, here you have a pretty traditional AR style mag release button, allowing you to drop the mag really easily. On the other side, you have an ambidextrous one as well, allowing you to drop that magazine if you'd like. But the one I find myself using most often, and probably the most fun, is the paddle or MP5 style, just behind the magazine, under the trigger guard. Strip and rip. Rip and strip? Is it rip and strip? Strip it and rip it? Is it rip it?
Grip it and rip it.
Is it grip it and rip? It's grip and rip. Grip and rip. That sounds weird. Let's shoot some more. Now, one thing I will point out, since I've just done a reload, is that the Ronin 47 uses the now pretty standard KWA magazines with that tongue. So, if you do plan to reinsert an empty magazine, please remember to press those down before reinserting them so that you don't damage these and you don't damage this. If you wanted to sling this puppy, you've got a sling mount point just in front of the stock on either side, making it convenient for one-point slings. Would I have preferred to see a sling mount point on the front and maybe a QD on the rear? Sure, but there are plenty of MLOK accessories available on the market to allow you to put a QD point on the front, and you can always do one of those loops on the back and still retain that cool sling action. One thing I do also want to mention is how much I really like this PTS grip. Not only is the texturization really positive and you get a nice grip on it, but I also like that you're able to get a more vertical angle, fatiguing your wrist less when you're firing at any stock extension position, as well as matching the texturization on the stock pad to the motor grip. I really like that. As usual, we're going to start our accuracy portion out here at the 50-foot line. I've got 0.25 gram BBs in our magazine, as well as an 1000 milliamp battery in the stock. I've just taken these out of the box, so I haven't cleaned the barrel. All I've done is set the hop up and zeroed my red dot. Let's see what kind of accuracy we get at 50 feet. As you can see with the red dot on here, even with the shorter barrel length, 50 feet is no problem at all for the Ronin 47. Let's move out to 100 and see how we do. Now we've moved out to the 100-foot line, still got 2 5s in the magazine. I haven't changed anything, so we're gonna see what kind of lift we get on the BB. Now, because it's 0.25s, thankfully we don't have a whole lot of wind today, so we shouldn't see a whole lot of drift in our BBs left to right, up and down. Let's see how accurate it is, and then we'll talk about some of the upgrades that I think I'd make. Sounds from here like I missed one, but the rest were on target. Let's go take a look at the paper and see how we did. At the 50-foot line, all of these were in the A zone. It was real easy to target, acquire, and get accurate shots at that distance. I think this is certainly a very CQB friendly gun, and it should work anywhere between 50 and 100 feet without any problem. At 100 feet though, we start to see somewhere where we can improve. 2 5s out of a short barrel like this can be affected by wind. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of wind today, but you can see that our spread opened up quite a bit. Now that can be corrected by A, cleaning your barrel right out of the box, and upgrading to a tighter bore or slightly longer inner barrel. As it stands, when this arrives to you, the inner barrel stops pretty far short of the end of the outer barrel. So a simple, effective, relatively inexpensive upgrade that you can do as your first upgrade would be changing out the inner barrel, going to something like a 603 or a 601 if you're playing in pretty clean environments, and going with that longer barrel is going to get you tighter groupings at farther distances. Again, you probably want to clean that one too. One other thing I'd like to mention while we're here is the rotary style hop-up. The rotary style hop-up is easy to adjust. I really like the rotary style as opposed to the traditional version 2 style. One thing I also noticed about the KWA version is how minute the adjustments are that you can make. The clicking as you're making an adjustment is really tight, kind of like a snap-on wrench versus a Craftsman. You have more teeth, which gives you a finer adjustment, which ultimately gives you more precision on adjusting your hop-up, and I really like that. This is very similar to the QRF style hop-up, so if you already have a QRF, or if you're looking for something like that design, it's the same one here. Now then, let's test our magazine fitment and see what else fires in this thing. You know, here is where we'd traditionally be doing our mag fitment test to give you guys a better idea of what works and what doesn't. The reality is, because of the Ronin's unique design and the very specific proprietary magazine, there is no magazine compatibility. You have to use the Ronin 47 mag. Not that that's a huge negative. There are some distinct advantages to the Ronin 47's magazine. One, because it's specifically designed for this platform, mag fitment is perfect and feeding is perfect. Not to mention the cool styling of having that PTS/Magpul style with the dot matrix for identification. It fits in M4 style pouches, allowing you to reload really quickly, which I like. And because it feeds nicely, there really is no reason to buy any other magazine. Not that you could anyway. I will say this though, and I guess we're getting into some of the things I think could be improved. If you're designing a platform from scratch, why not design it to take the AK style magazine with the M4 top to also be compatible with M4 magazines? Now, I get it. The reason Apple sells you Apple products is because Apple products work best with Apple stuff, and they want you to continue to buy Apple. And in a similar way, they have a lot of faith in the feeding and fitment of their magazines, and so using those magazines makes the most sense. So I guess I could understand why they didn't go with an AR style adapter for the magazine, but I feel like it would have been convenient, right? We're gonna go ahead and do our FPS and RPS test. One of the huge advantages of the AEG 2.5 and 2.5 Plus is their variable FPS. Now, it does come with a tool to allow you to adjust the FPS from outside the gearbox, like so. We've got it backed all the way out to see what kind of FPS we're getting with the spring backed all the way out. Then we'll tighten it all the way down and see what our top FPS is going to be. Obviously, to do that, I've got to remove the stock. Keep in mind that while they do provide a tool to adjust the FPS, they do not provide you with a Phillips screwdriver to remove the stock. So make sure you have one handy if you do plan on adjusting your FPS when you get to your location. Oh, almost forgot. 11.1 volt LiPo battery. I've got this one on an adapter because, like a fool, I didn't charge any of my Dean's connector batteries, so we're going Tamiya with an adapter today. And 0.20 gram BBs. See how we do. Real consistent within about 2 FPS. With the spring backed all the way out, we're getting about 334 to 336 FPS, which I think is great, especially for an indoor gun. Let's see how we do on full auto with a 20C 11.1 backed all the way out. A very healthy 20.29 rounds per second. Let's tighten up the spring, see what kind of FPS we get. Now we've spun it clockwise all the way until it stops, so we're gonna get the maximum amount of spring tension as the spring's been compressed. See what kind of FPS we get. No change on BBs or battery. Wow. Now you might think that simply by compressing the spring more, you wouldn't see a large jump in FPS, because really, how much better could it get? But it can. There's a difference of over 30 FPS. We're right at 379, 380, making this ideal as an FPS outdoors, especially at your longer range engagements. So if you're looking for a gun that can do both, indoor and outdoor, this is definitely it. Let's see what kind of rate of fire we get with a compressed spring. We did have a slight drop in rounds per second, but only about 2. So we're still getting 18 rounds per second, even with the spring fully compressed at 379 FPS. I think that's really good. Let's talk a little bit about the trigger. Now, obviously, this one's green because of this awesome Drifter edition, but the triggers are going to be the exact same other than color between both the full black version and the Drifter version. Pretty standard for an M4 style trigger. There's quite a bit of take up, and then now, one thing I do like though is there's very little over travel after it fires. See, no additional over travel, like so. And there's a nice audible reset. Now, with that said, maybe I'm just used to electronic triggers, or maybe I'm used to trigger board MOSFETs that have a kind of a clicky push button trigger to them. This is not that, and it's going to feel a lot more akin to a standard version 2 trigger. Is that a negative? No, I don't think so. But does that mean that your rapid follow-up shots are going to be a little bit slower than they would be with an electronic trigger? Sure, but how much slower? I'd argue not that much slower. You just have to remember with a trigger like this to get a full trigger pull and not half pull the trigger, because then you get into issues with locking up your gears and things like that. So if you're not using a on and off push button style electronic trigger, make sure you're getting a full trigger pull. Now, since I've just made the claim that you could potentially lock up your trigger, I don't want you to think that this is somehow an inherent problem with the system. So I'm going to attempt to lock up the gears by rapid firing the trigger as fast as I possibly can. So bear with me here. Clearly, the included diode in lieu of a MOSFET is doing its job and keeping me from damaging either the motor or the battery. And I would argue that it's actually pretty difficult to lock up the gears on one of these. So rest assured, despite it not having an electronic trigger, this is definitely a performer right out of the box. Now, I think it's pretty clear that I love the styling of this platform. It's ergonomic, comfortable, it looks awesome. There are a couple things that I think, I don't know, maybe I would have changed. Now, this is a design feature and really won't bother anybody but maybe me, but I'm weird like that. The Picatinny and the 6 o'clock position on the handguard, I think it's kind of pointless unless you're putting a bipod. Even if you put a pistol light on there, it's going to get in the way of barriers if you wanted to rest your rifle. And most people are going to put the flashlight up on the side anyway, so maybe I wouldn't have included that, but again, that's entirely personal preference. I do love that it's MLOK instead of key mod, which is fantastic. The other thing that kind of sucks, but if you like the stock, it's great. The PDW style stock has plenty of battery room, and the fact that it's adjustable is very nice, but if you wanted to swap this to a standard buffer tube, you can't. Sorry, guys. And one more thing about the stock that I don't know. Maybe it just bothers me, but you tell me what you guys think. That sound. But aside from that, I love it. And one more thing, I mean, maybe I'm spoiled, but I think, a lot of us have gotten used to guns coming with MOSFETs and electronic triggers nowadays. That just seems to be the way the industry is going. And I don't think it's a huge negative that this one doesn't come with it. I do think it's a huge saving grace that the AEG 2.5 Plus gearbox allows for the fitment of an electronic trigger, so you can always throw in your favorite. And I'm glad that they were thinking about aftermarket compatibility when they designed the AEG 2.5 gearbox. Not really a negative. I guess more something to look forward to when you decide to upgrade. With well thought out ambidextrous controls, plenty of battery space, adjustable stock, and plenty of MLOK accessory room up front, the Ronin 47 gives you a usable, awesome looking platform on the airsoft field. If you're interested in checking out the Drifter version of the Ronin 47, you better act quickly because these things are extremely limited, and if you want to be part of that exclusive club, you better act fast. Of course, the black one is also available right here on our website at Evike.com. Or if the Ronin 47 isn't your flavor and you wanted something a little bit different, the QRF series and Ronin series from KWA are also awesome choices and retain a lot of the same functions seen here on the Ronin 47. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe and click that bell notification icon to be notified of our latest videos, like overviews of exciting new products or, you know, even more exciting ways to reload and other fun things that we come up with in our top 10s. Also, check out our Facebook and our Instagram where we regularly upload exciting content like awesome photos of products like this, as well as contests and giveaways that we do on our Facebook on a regular basis. As always, make sure you're playing hard, playing safe, playing responsibly. See you guys later.